they're shoveling in the sugar, the carbs, the donuts, the candy as quickly as they can. And you see mayhem across the board and people gaining weight. Our food source is pretty rotten. There's a lot of bad things out there. And he was like, I used copious amounts of this, and I thought for sure I was going to have a flare up, and there was nothing. At the end of the day, when it comes to our health, no one is coming to save us. I want to be a part of that solution and not just, beat the drum that there's a problem out here.
So we've got with us Natalie. Natalie is going to tell us about, I think, a new product that she has. Just before we do that, Natalie, just maybe share your background if you don't mind.
Yeah, sure. So I am a professional figure competitor in the IFBB. So one of those crazy people that are out there. But I'm also very heavily interested in naturally healing and taking care of the body. So, my lifelong pursuit and mission has been about helping people to utilize food as medicine and really just working on the educational portion of that. So I'm just throwing my hat in the ring to help people out with managing metabolic health and optimizing their wellness.
Yeah, and I've met you now several times. We've had dinner a couple times, and you are very physically fit for sure. I mean, you can tell this. You can tell as somebody who takes care of themselves and works out and lifts some weights. And I am certainly in favor of that. As many people that know me, I've been lifting weights for 45 years now and continue to do so as I get close to 60. So tell me a little bit. So obviously, what you have is a product that is I guess a natural sweetener of some sort. Maybe you can discuss what compelled you to want to do that, and then how did you discover this, and tell us about the product a little bit.
Yeah, sure. So back when I had my wellness center in Ohio, I was helping people to utilize services in a spa setting that was designed to help with body contouring. And so everybody was always asking me about how to manage their cravings. They want treats, but they don't want to, blow it when they're trying to, lose weight and utilize these services. So I was always trying to help people with recipes or making healthier alternatives if they felt like they needed something, but without breaking their diet. So I was always interested in food, helping, with clean ingredients, not using sugar, not using artificial ingredients, certainly, because, I'm geared towards natural solutions. And through trial and error and trying things with the stevias and the monk fruits and all these other things, I just saw that there was something missing or lacking, and I thought that there could be something better. So the seed was always planted there to help people not, blow their diets completely, but also to find something better than the alternatives that were currently in the marketplace. So I just, started batching things out in the kitchen and finally landed on what it is I brought to market now.
Okay, well, let's go into that. Well, first of all, a lot of people, I mean, that's a thing. People go on low carb diets, or maybe they're diabetic, they want to avoid sugar because of some of the metabolic consequences some people have, and they've resorted. I mean, alternative sweeteners have been around for a long, long time, going back to, I'm sure the things even predated saccharin, but saccharin, sweet and low, equal, aspartame, sucralose. Now we sort of, now we talk more about things like stevia and monk fruit and allulose, and all those things have been going on for quite some time. Some people find great benefit from that it avoids them from maybe over consuming sugary products, and it may have a beneficial net effect on their body weight. Some people, have problems with these things. What are some of the problems with some of the artificial sweeteners out there, to include things like stevia, monk fruit, and so on and forth? And then we'll get into what your product is.
Yeah. So, with the options that you have out there, a lot of the things, even the stevia, the things that are supposed to be natural, when you're going to your grocery store and you flip over those packages and you really look at the ingredient label, normally there's something like maltodextrin in there or dextrose, which is not going to be beneficial if you're trying to manage, your health. So, when seeing those flaws out there, I wanted to find a better way of doing this. So, and when you have things like the allulose on the market now, which is proven to be so beneficial for a lot of people, you still run into some issues. Some people who have really sensitive guts, will still respond to using allulose. So I wanted to try to find a way to bridge that gap where you weren't having the digestive issues when using compounds like allulose, but you weren't having, the fillers or the binders that are normally in commercially available sweeteners, and also something that wasn't going to damage your mitochondria or your gut microbes. So the hunt was on to create something more in line with that.
Okay. And I just for the record, your dietary preference as a bodybuilder tends to be maybe lower carb. Is that fair to say or no?
Yeah, absolutely. So low carb to carnivore is, my preference for where I'm leaning. Even when I'm not in contest prep, I still maintain a very low carb lifestyle. I'm not somebody who runs to sugar or carbs as soon as I get off the stage, and that's something that is really problematic in the bodybuilding industry. A lot of the people that I compete with, as soon as they get off of that stage, they're shoveling in the sugar, the carbs, the donuts, the candy as quickly as they can. And you see mayhem across the board and people gaining weight significantly. I just don't go that way. It's low carb for me year round.
Okay. So tell us about the substance that you guys have, just because I met you and both you and your husband have sort of been involved in this, but what is the product?
Yeah, so the product that we created is called Dulsa. And like I said, I wanted to find a spin for sweeteners that was actually going to be something that was beneficial for you versus just sweetening up your tea or your coffee. So, what we had done is we looked at this as how can we make this more like a dietary supplement and not so much like a sugar replacement. So, we incorporated, like I said, all natural organic ingredients, but we were looking at, how do these things help with health. So, we utilized prebiotic fibers in there. We put spore-based probiotics in there. We used a full spectrum fulvic minerals so that we wanted to make sure that we were helping with things like electrolyte balance and also cellular detoxification and also pulling heavy metals and chemicals out of your system, because unfortunately our food source is pretty rotten. There's a lot of bad things out there. So we just wanted to make sure we had things in there to actually benefit you, not just, sweeten your tea or your coffee. And then utilizing things like the allulose with all the clinical research behind that, we have a lot of those beneficials that go along with that also.
Okay, so Dulsa is the proprietary name I guess you guys came up with. What exactly is it if you could, like a chemical structure, what exactly is this product?
Yeah, so well, it's got the prebiotics. So we have the yacon, the inulin in there. We have allulose in there. We also have a little monk fruit in there. We have full spectrum fulvic minerals. We have bacillus coagulans in there, and also Madagascar vanilla. We have bamboo silica, and that's essentially the makeup of the entire product. So again, no fillers, no binders, no maltodextrin, no dextrose, just good ways to sweeten and not hurt you.
How does it there are like I see a lot of products are compared to, like they'll say, like for instance, I can't remember, sucralose is X percentage more sweet than say sugar, or there's equivalent dosing. How does that compare to, because a lot of people use sugar as sort of the
Yeah,
standard which they compare things to. So what is this? Maybe it's a sweetness index. I'm not even sure how it works, but
yeah,
what is
sure.
that?
So the way that the ratio works with our sweetener is you're using a quarter of a teaspoon in lieu of using a teaspoon of sugar. So it's significantly sweeter than sugar. And again, it's that combination of the ingredients in there where you're getting the bulk of the sweetness coming from the prebiotics and also the sweetening elements to the product. But yeah, so it's much sweeter. It's not going to be like working with sugar in the instance of, say, you had somebody who wanted to do like a carnivore candy recipe, which, I have a couple people who are helping me out in the carnivore and also in the keto space with recipes. You're using a very, very small amount of this in comparison to sugar. So it's not going to be like a bulking agent in your recipe.
What is the do we know if anything about the glycemic impact, or anybody, CGM data or anything like that that could inform us on that aspect?
Yeah, sure. When I was doing my testing with this, when I was creating this in the kitchen, I was wearing a continuous glucose monitor and keeping track of that. And over the 2 week period that I was testing it, wearing it, consuming this multiple times throughout the day, I was not getting a rise in my index. So that was really cool. And what I'm looking to do with this, because of course here I am, I'm not a scientist, I'm not one of these lab coats in the back of a food processing plant. I'm actually working with a couple of doctors. One is a professor over at Nova University. Another one is running the International Brain Health Institute. And they're both going to help me with the clinical aspect of this. So we are looking to start actually getting some clinical data on this and make it more robust as far as what we're finding with this sweetener.
Okay, and then so I guess the other questions is how would it be utilized? How heat stable is it? Can you use it to bake with, cook with? I mean, how is it used?
Yeah, so I did a little experiment. So, of course, with going to all the bodybuilding shows and being a vendor at the bodybuilding shows, um, snacks and treats are always the first thing that they go for. So I decided to batch up some mini cheesecakes and I utilized our sweetener in that. So yes, baking with this is absolutely a possibility. And the flavor profile is beautiful. It actually enriches all the flavors surrounding it. So hands down, I had competitors coming up to me afterwards buying 5 mini cheesecakes at a time. So I was at least happy that I was not feeding them, mouthfuls of sugar in that, but I would see them go over to the next tables and buy 5 donuts afterwards or chocolate chip cookies. So, I didn't win the battle completely, but at least I was not contributing to their metabolic dysfunction or their type 2 diabetes.
All right, and so obviously there's a cost component to this. How does it stack up to compared to contemporary, sort of similar sweetener products that are out there?
Yeah, so when you compare this to something like a pure, and I mean something that's not like degraded with the fillers and the binders, like a pure monk fruit or a pure stevia, we're probably going to be about, depending on the source that you're getting it from, maybe $5 to $10 more expensive when you go into a large size bag. But again, it's hard for us to be gauged and stacked up against a product like that where we're actually working more as a supplement, not just a sweetener. So that is something to also bear in mind when looking at cost comparison. But we do our very best to make sure, again, that it's a clean product, stable, third-party tested, individual raw ingredients, and making sure that we're staying within the organic standards. So yeah, I think we're doing okay. And of course, we're a very young company. Where my husband and I are a 2-person team. We just signed on with our manufacturing plant. So as we increase in volume and size, of course, our pricing will be adjusted to meet that. But right now, when everything is small batch, it's going to be at its highest right now. But we're working really hard to get that down. But we're bootstrapping this mission.
Yeah, obviously economies of scale. I mean, obviously, if you can produce more, the volume goes up, the cost goes down a little bit, as it does with most things. Where do you source? Because I heard things like Madagascar vanilla and some of these. Where do they come from? I mean, this Yacon syrup or something. I've heard of
No,
that before.
yeah, so all powders. We're not doing any liquid formats of this yet.
Okay.
We are working with a team that procures our ingredients for us. They are a family-run business. They're still getting all of our ingredients, and they have third-party testing on all their ingredients. So we individually batch test each thing that comes in. So we're making sure that it's as clean as humanly possible. And yeah.
All right. And so, as far as the name, so the name of the product is Dulsa,
Yeah,
correct?
yeah,
Do
that's what you
you
got when were at the restaurant. So Dulsa, Dulsa.
Dulsa, Dulsa. So Dulsa obviously confers to sweetness when most people think of dolce or
Yeah,
dulce.
absolutely. And that was my husband's bright idea, so you can thank him for that one.
Okay, Dulsa. And is it a standalone product or does it come pre integrated into other things? Hey folks, it's Dr. ShawnBaker here. Hey, if you or someone you love is suffering from chronic disease and you're tired of just managing symptoms with potions, pills, and procedures, I want you to check out Revero.com. Our team of dedicated professionals is committed to tackling the root cause of your issue and finally getting you healthy. Hurry up, though. Our spaces are filling up very quickly.
So great question. So right now we have just the standalone sweetener. And what we're looking to do is I have 2 size offerings on the website, an intro size pouch and then a large size pouch. The next thing that we're going to be releasing is going to be like the sugar sachets that you would typically find in like a coffee shop. So those are going to be next. And what we're doing there is obviously the convenience factor for the consumer, but we're also going into the hospitality industry. So again, we're trying to disrupt the options that are currently on the market. So we're going to be getting that in some. We have some hotel chains that we're in communication with right now, and also some local coffee shops, and we'll be looking to expand into larger markets from there. But really, Shawn, the push with this is we're trying to get this stuff into manufactured and finished food items. So instead of having, a nutritional bar that has sucralose or aspartame or a stevia in it, we're looking to actually get them to implement the Dulsa instead. So again, improve the quality of the product that they're putting out there, and help them to actually, create cleaner products instead of high fructose corn syrup and maltodextrin, things of that nature.
And when you say locally, you are, correct me if I'm wrong, you're based out of, the sort of the southern Florida on the Atlantic side. So you're on the Atlantic coast of Florida, correct?
Yeah, but as of last week, we just got our place out in Nevada, so we're going to be a little bit closer to you. So we're coming out to the western side of the country, and we're actually starting to get moved over next month. So we'll be here in Florida for a couple more months, but then we'll make the full time switch over to Nevada.
So Las Vegas, maybe,
Yeah,
or
just outside of Las Vegas. The last time we were with Dave and Sharon out there, we were like, hey, it's going to be a regular thing. We're going to go hiking with you guys out here. So we're trading in the oceanfront lifestyle for the desert.
so when you Dave and Sharon being Dave.
Dave Feldman.
Ah, okay. Yeah, actually, I'm visiting him with next week as I come out there for the Bitcoin conference. So,
Oh, fantastic. Well, you know what? We might be out there.
well, maybe we'll run into you guys again. It'll be quite a busy time. And
Yeah.
so the product you said a small and a large, basically bag, I guess, right now is that, or container or something like that. How you said that the typical serving is a quarter of a teaspoon. Is that would that be like in a cup of coffee, or what would that be in?
Yeah. So, I mean, I have people that are using just half a scoop in their cup of coffee to, a couple scoops. So really, I mean, the sweetness profile for whoever it is that's using, but typically in a cup of coffee, I'm using one scoop. But
And
if you just
how big is this scoop? Just
about a quarter of a teaspoon.
okay, because I'm thinking like a protein powder scoop, which is huge.
No, 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 no.
Yeah.
Like I said,
Okay.
a little goes a long way with this. And there was a scoop inside of the bag. I've had a couple people who just like instinctively just grab a teaspoon and dig into the bag and put a scoop in there. I'm like, wow, that'll just like knock you over. It'll be way too sweet like that. So yeah, there's a little scoop in the bag.
And then the dissolvability is it dissolved pretty easily, I guess?
Yeah, so obviously in hot fluids, it's going to dissolve much quicker, but in cold liquids, it will dissolve fully. But initially, you'll see some of it will drop down to the bottom even after you give it its first stir. But if you just let it sit, even a glass of water, you will see it will fully dissolve.
Okay.
Yeah.
And all right. And so just I mean, obviously many of us have cooked recipes. So I assume anything you would use sugar for, you could use it in any of those recipes, I would assume, correct?
Yeah, so like I said, I'm working with a couple people now who are in the food space. And like I said, predominantly I'm looking at people in the carnivore and the keto space because again they're already accustomed to working with sweeteners that are going to be like a monk fruit, so they're more accustomed to working in those smaller volumes. So I am getting some feedback from people in those spaces, but yeah, ultimately the goal is I want to provide people who are looking to make standard baked goods with an alternative sweetener, but it's going to require some alchemy in the kitchen because it's not a standard one for one with sugar. And the only other way I could get it up to a more measurable dose would be for me to add fillers or something like that into the product. And I'm just not willing to do that. So, it might not be the right thing for every single person. And I'm certainly not trying to acquire people who are dealing with, sugar problems where it's like if they have something sweet, they fall off the rails and they just destroy their diets. I'm just trying to provide a better solution for people who are actively using sweeteners or who occasionally like to sweeten something. It's like I don't use sweeteners very often, but in my cup of coffee, sure. But when I have iced tea, I like my tea unsweetened. So it's like I just want to be a bridge for people.
And one of the knockoffs of some of these, particularly sugar alcohols, and some others are gut problems. A lot of people with bloating, diarrhea, things like that. Any issues around the gut with this? Because a lot of people, that's a real concern for them.
Yeah, so I have a really interesting bit of feedback, and I'll wait till that person makes a public announcement about it. But I'm working with someone who has a very, very sensitive stomach, who had severe irritable bowel issues, and he used a large amount of our sweetener and thought for sure that he was going to have an issue. And I got a text message maybe about 2 weeks after I had given him some of the sweetener, and he wrote back to me and he was like, I used copious amounts of this, and I thought for sure I was going to have a flare up, and there was nothing. And then, as a sub note, he also told me that he noticed that his tongue was now pink, like visibly changing color in his tongue. But he thought that he may have had a small overgrowth of candida in his mouth, and noticed that his tongue was becoming more pink and less white. So, but yeah, no sensitivity issues so far to date. We've tested this out on hundreds of people at this point in time. We did a really big beta test before we even released it out in Arizona at a Turning Point rally, and hands down, we just got incredible praise about the taste of it and people ready to purchase it on the spot. But I've gotten no feedback about anybody having any gastrointestinal issues. And like I said, without having any sugar alcohols in there, we haven't seen any problems.
Yeah, and I imagine that's, the course of a new product. You have to bring it out to the market and let people experience it and try it and so on and so forth. And and to be fair, I did I think a year ago you gave me some try, and I thought it tasted quite good. I mean, let me
Well,
ask you the question. You have vanilla. You said Madagascar vanilla in there. Does that give it a vanilla, impart a vanilla flavor, or what is the purpose of that?
yeah, so it was definitely to give a little depth to the product, but I didn't want it to be overwhelmingly vanilla flavored. So it was just to give a little depth. But most people, when they taste it, they're like, I taste something there. I'm not quite sure what it is. And they take a minute and they put their finger on it. They're like, oh, yeah, okay, it's got a little vanilla in there. But it's not something that, if you have something that's got a strong vanilla flavor in it, not everybody loves vanilla. But what the vanilla does is it actually acts as a debitterizer. So when you're using it in recipes, or even with your coffee, if you have a ripe coffee that's not like the best brew, it actually tames it down just a little bit. So that's a nice little feature of it. But what we've seen, and I have a company who works in the holistic cancer care space, and they make a nutritional bar that has some really bitter ingredients in it. And when they put our sweetener in it, it actually softened the flavor profile, but they were actually able to minimize some of the ingredients that they had in there for flavoring because it amplified the flavors.
Okay, and so where are you guys at on your production as far as, let's say tomorrow you have 5,000 people want to order it. I mean, obviously there's a scaling and ramping. So like, are you guys in stock right now? If people that are listening that might be interested in this, where are you guys at on that situation?
Yeah, so if we got an immediate order for 5,000, I would say probably poop in a more colorful fashion. But I'd be really excited about it because we're actually going into large scale production in just about a week and a half. So right now, again, we are still small batch operation, and you'll see I just recently did several podcasts, and we got hit pretty hard. So it was like, okay, we had to, put some pre-orders onto the website, but we've been able to keep up with it. And yeah, so once we go into full scale operation, I think our first run is 5,000 pouches. Our second run is 10,000, then 25,000, and then it's just full scale. And we have a lot of redundancy built into our manufacturing. So we actually have manufacturing in Utah, and then we're also going to be opening up on the East Coast. So our goal ultimately is going to be to be able to get orders fulfilled within just a couple of days. But again, there is a small ramp up process to that.
And when you say pouches, what is the size of that? Is it a couple ounces, or what is this? What are the sizes that you guys currently sell?
Yeah, sure. So we have two pouches. The intro size pouch gives about 80 servings, and the larger pouch is a 120-gram pouch, and that gives about 150 to 200 servings, depending on how much somebody's using it, like, or how full of the scoop they're putting in there. Like I said, my people who are using half a scoop, that bag lasts them forever.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So, but yeah, like with everything that's happening with, the Maha movement in particular, I'm so happy to see that people are are having a mainstream conversation about food and what's in our food. And I love it because I remember you had a t-shirt once that you were wearing that said, no one is coming to save you. And really, at the end of the day, when it comes to our health, no one is coming to save us. We still have to, rely on ourselves to make the best options when it comes to our food and what it is that we're going to be consuming ultimately. And yeah, like I said, I want to be a part of that solution and not just, beat the drum that there's a problem out here. So.
Yeah, let me switch gears just briefly for a second here. So you obviously starting a company is a lot of work, as I'm sure you and your husband are very familiar with. And like myself with Revero, it's a lot of work and got a lot of irons in the fire. How do you are you still able to stay healthy with your own personal life? Because I think it's an important aspect. How do you juggle that?
Yeah, so the balance aspect is always going to be like so hard when you're in business for yourself. And I had to make some hard decisions, and really it was the bodybuilding had to go on hold for a couple of reasons. And you and I discussed this briefly over dinner. The bodybuilding industry, I don't quite like the trajectory of it right now. I don't like the way that the women are being represented in the sport. I don't like the standard that's currently on us. I want to maintain a certain look in my femininity, and I don't like the way the direction the sport is going right now. And when you're on that level, especially in the pro level, I'm in the gym 2 times a day. So normally first thing in the morning and then later in the day, if not the evening, to go and practice my posing and eating, an obscene amount of food and training and stressing my body in ways that are just not great for me. To do that on top of launching a business, really, I could see what was happening. And I actually did end up back in the hospital. And I don't know that I got to convey that when we were in Tulsa together, but I ended up back in the hospital, severely ill, back on, rescue inhalers and nebulizers. And really, it was just, I was running myself too hard, too fast. And it was overwhelming. So keeping healthy is my primary goal. So I had to give something up. And I want my business to be absolutely successful. And that requires 100% of my effort. So all hands on deck when it comes to the business. And my husband and I are still running nonstop. So bodybuilding is just off to the side right now.
Yeah, I mean it's a obviously you don't have to be a bodybuilder to be healthy. I mean, there's
Yeah.
lots of ways you can do that. I mean, I do think being strong and fit is a benefit, but it doesn't have to be at that level because, as you know, a bodybuilding contest is a full 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, deal, and everything revolves around that. And you can't really do these things. And obviously, with business, there's ups and downs, and you get pulled a lot of different directions, and there's emergencies that occur that you have to deal with. And if you're focused on bodybuilding, you're gonna lose that in many ways.
Yeah.
Um, all right. Well, I guess let me just. So Dulsa is the name of the product. It is available for anybody for purchase right now. What is the shipping time typically for that?
So with well, shipping seems to be having an issue right now. We use USPS, and we try to keep things going out as quickly as humanly possible. And typically, it's a few days to get a package, but every now and then, it's like I have a package going, just a few towns over in Florida, and it's like it gets diverted someplace else. But typically, it's a few days to get a package if the people at the post office aren't doing crazy things. But yeah, we're really excited for the things that are coming because, like I said, we're really interested in helping people to focus on their health, to get away from the things that are harmful, and we're trying to partner up with some people who are in the administration and really focused on cleaning up the food supply and the ingredients that are going into things. So hopefully you're going to be seeing us in larger scale here much sooner than expected.
Well, awesome. And again, I wish you guys all the best. I think you come from a good place and hopefully success with this. Natalie, thank you for sharing this with us. And if there's anything else you want us to know, uh, go ahead.
No, just keep an eye out for us. You can find us on the standard social medias, the X, the Facebook, the Instagram at Dulsa Life. But yeah, I encourage people that if you're using a sweetener and you're looking for a better alternative, or just recognizing that, the one that you're using isn't working best for you, please give us a try and give us your feedback. But, we're interested in helping people along this journey. And yeah, that's about it.
And the website, Dulsa, is it Dulsa? Is there anything else to that?
Dulsa Life, Life, because we are going to have some other products coming down the pipeline. There's going to be probably a coffee creamer and then some hydration stick packs that'll also be coming. You'll see the stick packs on the website.
All right, dulsalife.com.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Thanks, Natalie. Appreciate it.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Baker. Look forward to seeing you soon, hopefully out in the Bitcoin conference.
All right. Take care. Bye-bye now.